While Attorney General Jeff Sessions was recusing himself from overseeing any Justice Department investigations into contacts between the Trump-Pence campaign and the Russians, he was also busy behind the scenes seeking the resignation of some 46 U.S. attorneys. Here in New York, Preet Bharara, on the job since 2009 as Southern District U.S. attorney, got the call, but not the clue.
Yeah, Bharara made national headlines when he refused to resign as the sheriff of Wall Street, a move that prompted his firing. So what's next for Bharara? Who will be the next Southern District U.S. attorney, and how will this new fault line shake up the political landscape of the city and the state? Back with us to talk it all out, along with news about our mayor and our governor, are Ben Max, executive editor of Gotham Gazette. Ben, nice to see you again. Thanks for being here. And Will Bredderman, politics editor at The Observer. Will, thank you for being here, too. Thank you both for being here.
So let's begin at the beginning. The news came down this morning that de Blasio is not going to be prosecuted on these pay-to-play things that stemmed from, 2013 fundraising. And I had just a little thing from Cy Vance in the 10-page letter. He said something about the conduct here may have violated the election law, but the parties involved can't be appropriately prosecuted given their reliance on the advice of counsel. And the acting now U.S. attorney said something about the burden of proof was a little high. And he didn't even want to get into it ahead of the election, something I'm sure Hillary Clinton wishes she would have had the courtesy of. So would it have made a difference anyway, you think, Ben?
Well, I think there's a lot that makes a difference here. First of all, this is a ways out from the September primary and the November general, so there's a lot of lead time here that now changes the whole landscape of the 2017 mayoral race, and it also changes just sort of the clouds above City Hall that have been there for about a year as these investigations have been going on.
Yeah, I saw the mayor this morning on the street. In case you missed it, he had a big smile on his face. Go on.
Yeah, I think he'll be smiling a lot, although he's going to still face some tough questions because, as you just pointed out, while they say there's no charges in these two matters, these aren't completely clean bills of health.
Yeah.
Right, and I think part of it is that it was well known there was a number of people who were basically holding off on jumping into the mayoral race. Right. Probably Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., possibly Comptroller Scott Stringer, though he sort of backed away from it a few weeks ago. Possibly Republicans like Queens Councilman Eric Ulrich, who were, waiting to see if there was anything was going to come down. Of course, if you were in sort of the political world in the last, several months, there was always these rumors something's going to drop, something's going to drop. Yeah. And certainly this is a relief for the mayor. It makes things harder for, his Republican opponents insofar as
you can't just tack on embattled in front of his name now. You have to just say Mayor de Blasio.
Sure, and I'm sure there'll be more details that we're going to sort of come out over time. As you said, in the case of the Campaign for One New York, as political nonprofit, and the possibility of pay to play, the acting U.S. attorney June Kim said, there were cases where, and de Blasio has almost admitted this, saying he puts things on agencies' plates, that there were cases where where the political nonprofit received donations and he went to agencies, but it was just simply an issue of could you prove this was a pay-for-play, this was a quid pro quo. It's also extremely difficult because de Blasio himself did not get rich off of any of these things. It's not a case like Sheldon Silver, the former Assembly Speaker,
enriching
himself.
By having the ear of the person in power. But this doesn't happen when you have a billionaire mayor. This wasn't an issue when we had a Bloomberg.
Yeah, I mean, the mayor, there's also questions about whether any of what the mayor did with the Campaign for One New York was necessary in any way, shape, or form. That's a whole other conversation. The fact is, though, that the burden of proof here is pretty high, and as Will said, there was no evidence of personal enrichment, although there are questions about how the money got raised and then basically spent on de Blasio's favorite consultants who made a good amount of money off of these efforts.
I just wonder what John Liu is thinking this morning. He's sitting in class somewhere like...
Right, he had the fundraising investigation around the 2013 mayoral campaign that sort of, some say sunk his primary, although de Blasio had sort of stolen his thunder, as the most progressive candidate.
It was really the Campaign Finance Board decision that sort of put the final nail in Liu when they decided he would not receive matching funds, and that basically meant he would never be able to get the same, airspace as any of his rivals.
Just one more thing on the race. There's no charges here, but whoever winds up facing de Blasio in the primary or the general, all of this is still going to be discussed, right?
Okay, let's talk about that. If you guys look into your crystal ball a little bit, how do you see, as we head into the spring and the summer, this mayoral race beginning to break down, specifically in terms of who emerges for the Republicans and whether or not Hillary will even be there? Is that still a thing?
I feel like the Hillary Clinton thing is something that gets floated out periodically. People love to read about that sort of thing. The odds that she actually runs for New York City mayor, where she would not only be sort of at the mercy of the president, but also of the governor, and there's a history of tensions between the Cuomos and the Clintons, whether she wants to really put herself in this sort of very difficult municipal job.
Yeah.
Of being a mayor, which is not and it's not a great launching pad. No New York City mayor has ever attained higher office, so it's a dead-end job, really, for somebody who's been a U.S. senator and been a presidential candidate.
Yeah.
The Democratic field, there's de Blasio, there's Queens State Senator Tony Avella, there's former Brooklyn Councilman Sal Albanese. Avella and Albanese really are not factors. I mean, frankly, the people that they represent, or in Albanese's case represented, just aren't a large cross-section of the Democratic primary electorate.
And they're not raising any money early.
What about the funding? Because de Blasio is being lapped in by the GOP candidate. Like, he's got like $800,000 or something.
Well, on the Republican side, there's real estate executive Paul Massey. He's raising a lot of money. He's spending a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
He's actually spent more than he's raised, but he's loaning himself a bunch of money as well. He'll be fine financially to run a race. The question for him is, can he gain any traction? Can he gain any name recognition?
Yeah.
And will he have to have such a tough Republican primary that he has to spend and spend and spend and then is in bad shape for the general?
Yeah.
Massey's also, if you've seen him on the stump, he is not what you would call a dynamic candidate. He has trouble answering a lot of policy questions, which he appears not to have been briefed on, or not to have been briefed on at any great length. He was really hammering home this sort of corruption issue. He was sort of styling himself as a Bloomberg type operator, but he does not have the wealth of Bloomberg. A Republican official told me recently that to become a Republican mayor in New York City, you need about $100 million. And Massey's going to fall well short of that. I think the question on the Republican side is whether John Catsimatidis, who was of course fell short in 2013 mayoral race, whether he steps in, because he in fact does have $3 billion to his name. He again, not a dynamic campaigner, not a man who is known for his depth of knowledge on municipal policy issues.
Yeah.
But if he gets into the race, certainly he would be viable as the GOP nominee. Would he be, in the absence of serious legal action against Bill de Blasio, is any Republican super viable? I would be inclined to say no.
Yeah.
The Democratic primary right now looks like it's going to be a whole lot of nothing. I don't even know if there'll wind up being debates because candidates might not even qualify to debate de Blasio. So that would be really sort of dull. And also, it's a problem for the city to an extent because you're not getting the robust sort of challenge to the sitting mayor. Yeah. Hey, let's look at your record. I mean, it's left to the press, of course, to do that. But like, hey, let's look at your record. Let's look at your promises. Let's look at your flaws. Right. And you have to defend them, more publicly.
I have a note here in something you wrote recently about the mayor's state of the city. You referred to him as an activist interventionalist. Mm-hmm. So I wonder how that comes into play when there are no challenges, apparently, like from the Dems or a strong Republican challenge.
Well, what I mean by that, is that that's how he approaches government. He has an approach to government that is the government does things for people, the government solves problems, the government creates jobs. He's from this sort of progressive mindset, although there's questions about how we might fully define his behavior, but he believes in spending more in government money, hiring more city employees to fix problems and spur growth and things like that. And so I think that's set to continue, although he might be hamstrung a little bit by federal and state budget monies.
Wow. So, Will, your good money would be on de Blasio being reelected?
Yeah, no,
okay.
Almost without a doubt. In fact, the lack of an indictment, lack of serious legal action, I mean, much of that case just loses its potency. Certainly, they're going, like I said, there is probably going to be a trickle of details to the press in the next few months. One thing also that's affected by the absence of Preet Bharara is Preet Bharara very much loved to try his cases in the press, and that was part of his strategy. He built his case against Sheldon Silver over the course of a few months, more or less through the New York Times. Similarly with Dean Skelos through a few different outlets. I just don't. There's no without a figure like that who is just so in love with the camera and so in love.
Yeah, this guy.
You know that without somebody like that, I just there's not somebody who's going to be pressing that compelling case on the legal end and really eager to get those details out there into the public ear. And in that case, I just don't see how somebody at this juncture, unless there is further information that comes out, which, you know, of course, both DA Vance and Kim, acting U.S. Attorney Kim, left that opening that possibly more information could be out there that we don't have yet, which, of course, Hillary Clinton could tell you that does happen. Of course, it's never too late for Anthony Weiner to make a cameo in any election, but it just does not seem likely at this juncture.
So, Preet Bharara, we were meant to be talking about him too. We have some great video of him leaving his office for the last time to the cheers of his colleagues and folks who worked for the man. But this does not look like the face of unemployment in New York City. So what ramifications is this going to have? Because he could potentially be a game changer. Like, does he go for Schneiderman's job? Does he go for the governorship? What does Preet Bharara do? He's got great name recognition. People think of him better than Spitzer even when he was like busting up Wall Street.
There's a lot of lore around Preet Bharara, but it's also sort of an insider lore. He doesn't have great name recognition across the city or the state. He could build it, but you know he would have a lot of building to do to run a campaign. I think, like Hillary Clinton, people might like to talk about Preet Bharara for mayor. That's not going to happen. The idea of him running against Andrew Cuomo in a Democratic primary, or even Preet Bharara running down the middle as an independent candidate in 2018, you know, I think that's a possibility because I don't think he likes Andrew Cuomo, and I don't think he likes how Cuomo has behaved.
Well, he's been Moreland, as he said. He knows how it feels now.
Will, anything you want to add to that?
I would just say, you know, with in regards to running for governor, you got to be able. I mean, like Ben said, Preet Bharara has built this great reputation among like politicos and people who are real buffs for this stuff, and that tends to be.
What's it going to take for him to build a machine, though? Because he's got that, but he doesn't have that mechanism behind him.
Right. I think that's Cuomo's great strength. Cuomo is somebody who can campaign in Nassau County, he can campaign in Erie County, he can campaign in East Flatbush. He's got near universal name recognition. Cuomo, you know, would be a very, very big target to beat. I would look for him. Preet also lives in Westchester. I would actually be looking for him. It's well known Nita Lowey, who is the congresswoman in Westchester, is considering retirement in the next few years. I would actually look for him to run for something like that seat. Also, it's very interesting. Chelsea Clinton is known to have been eyeing that seat for many years. That, I think, would be quite a campaign to see.
Wow. Well, what about 2020 for Cuomo? Are the stars aligned for him to make a run at the White House?
Stars aligned, I don't know. You know, I mean, I think he's trying to line up his stars. You know, I think that's what's in his eyes. You know, there's no question he's exploring it. There's no question he's looking at it. He's having conversations. As we get closer, you know, he's going to read some of the tea leaves. I think he's not a particularly similar to his father. You know, he's not a particularly prone to taking a lot of risks, I don't think. And so I don't know that he would really launch a campaign unless he felt like a pretty strong opportunity to make a good showing. But that's also very hard to do in a presidential race where there could be a dozen Democrats at the beginning.
I wonder what we're thinking about that, because a lot of people are saying the GOP is in such disarray. Who is going to emerge for the Democrats in 2020?
It really depends on the tenor of the Democratic electorate, in my opinion, which is that are they, like the Republicans, going to be able to sustain an outrage, a level of outrage through 4 years of this presidency, or is there going to be a level of exhaustion and fatigue that sets in? I mean, again, the Republicans were very angry in 2012. They nominated Mitt Romney, who was not a man known for his hot moods and his passion on the stump. You know, partially because that was Mitt Romney was who was available. The Democrats don't have a deep bench, but they do have some very ambitious players. Like, I think Andrew Cuomo, I think if he saw an opportunity, I think would jump for it. He obviously likes to speak in broad national terms. The question for me, again, is are you looking for somebody who is going to be an anger candidate, an outrage candidate to go up against Trump, or will the government be in such disarray that maybe we want a return to normalcy. Do we want to go back to having like a calm, considered manager for president, as opposed to somebody who is, you know, just an embodiment of populist anger? Cuomo's trying to sort of set an odd path for himself, where he's sort of veered to the left, but he doesn't really speak the language of the left. You know, when he goes up and he will say, given a say speech, well, in New York we don't see color. That's a line that's like, that would be anathema to say to a Bernie Sanders crowd, or to like a well-educated millennial crowd in Iowa, or at a college campus where Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders built their base. He definitely is building
Different with him.
building a portfolio. The question, I guess, like I said, is it going to be an outrage election, or is it going to be an election of let's basically get our government back on track, which is where Cuomo stepped in 2010 as the man who could take over New York State and put us back on a path of normalcy after the chaos of Patterson in the state Senate.
We'll have to wait and see, and plenty of time to have you guys back to talk about it. Ben, Will, thank you a million. Excellent job.
Thanks.
You're going to steal my job. You guys are great.